There's something strange about certainty. The moment you feel most sure of yourself might be the moment you're most wrong. Think about the last time you were absolutely convinced you were right. Maybe it was during an argument, a memory you swore happened a certain way, a fact you would have bet your life on, and then you were proven wrong. But not just wrong. Blindly, embarrassingly, unquestionably wrong. That feeling, that sharp sting in your gut, it's the moment reality breaks through the illusion. And the illusion is this. You thought you knew, but you didn't even know what you didn't know. Confidence versus competence. This isn't just a personal flaw, it's a glitch in human psychology, a pattern, a trap. In 1999, two psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, ran a series of experiments. They tested people on grammar, logical reasoning, and humor. Then they asked each person to rate how well they thought they did. The results were unsettling. The lowest performers, the ones who objectively scored the worst, believed they had done brilliantly. Meanwhile, the top scorers were far more modest. They underestimated their abilities. How? Because when you know so little, you don't even know how much there is to know. You think the surface is the whole ocean. But when you've truly studied something, when you've seen how deep the ocean goes, you become humble. You realize how little you actually grasp. And that humility? It looks like uncertainty. But it's actually wisdom. The inverted pyramid of perception. Here's the cruel irony. The less someone understands, the more certain they feel, and the more someone learns, the more doubts they begin to carry. It's a psychological phenomenon, but it plays out in daily life all the time. Someone watches a 5-minute video and suddenly feels like an expert. Another reads one book and talks like a master. A third overhears a conversation and thinks they understand the entire issue. They don't, but they feel like they do. And that's the danger. Because feeling certain is not the same as being right. It just feels better. Loud, wrong, and convincing. Now look at the world around you. Social media, politics, dinner table arguments. What do you notice? The loudest. People, the most confident ones, are often the most uninformed. They speak with fire. They argue with force. They don't blink, and the world listens. Because we confuse confidence with competence. But confidence is easy to fake. Certainty is seductive. And when certainty speaks, people fall silent. Even the wise, especially the wise. Because the wise don't want to shout. They want to understand. The blind spot in the mind lets go deeper. When you're truly unskilled in something, you're not just lacking knowledge. You're lacking the very awareness that you're missing it. That's the dark core of the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's not arrogance, it's ignorance. About your own ignorance. You can't see what's outside your field of view. And because you don't see it, you assume it's not there. That's like walking through a dense fog and saying, I see everything clearly. There's nothing beyond this. But the fog doesn't mean there's nothing. It means there's more than you can comprehend. Still, the mind hates uncertainty. So it fills the blanks with guesses and calls them answers. Why certainty feels so good? Have you ever noticed? How good it feels to know, to have a strong opinion, to take a stand, to be absolutely sure. It gives you control, a sense of power, a feeling of superiority, but knowledge doesn't always feel that way. Real knowledge, deep knowledge, often brings discomfort. It reveals contradictions. It exposes gaps, it challenges beliefs, and that's hard. So most people don't chase knowledge. They chase the feeling of knowing, but they're not the same. Hard. Look at ourselves, now pause. Let's not point fingers. Let's not talk about those people. Let's talk about us, because we've all done it. We've all mistaken fragments for the full picture. We've all spoken too soon. We've all held beliefs that turned out to be paper thin, and in those moments, we weren't lying. We genuinely thought we were right. That's what makes this so dangerous. False certainty doesn't feel false. It feels like truth, but it's not. And until we learn to question that feeling, we'll keep mistaking our illusions for insight. Scene fades to black. Quiet music plays. The less you know, the more certain you become. It's not just a paradox. It's a warning. Because when we're most sure of ourselves, that's when we need to pause. That's when we need to ask. The less you know, the more certain you become. This section dives deeper into the emotional, interpersonal, and psychological consequences of false certainty. It's structured to build tension, introspection, and connection, ending with a powerful moment of reflection. Section 2. The Trap of Conviction. Opening scene. Two people arguing in a kitchen. Both are speaking louder. Neither is listening. Narration. What breaks relationships isn't always cruelty. Sometimes it's conviction, the kind that blinds you, the kind that refuses to doubt. It begins subtly. A disagreement, a small difference in opinion, but something shifts. The room tightens, the voice rises, the mind locks in. Not because the topic is urgent, but because one person must be right. That's the trap of conviction, and it destroys more than we realize. Certainty in relationships, conviction feels noble. Standing your ground, speaking your truth. But certainty is a double-edged sword, especially in relationships. Because the moment you're too sure you're right, you stop listening. You stop questioning. You stop seeing the other person as someone worth understanding. Now, they're not your partner. They're your opponent. And the conversation becomes a battle. The need to be right eclipses the desire to connect. And when that happens, love suffocates. Not in silence, but in the noise of two people who both refuse to doubt. The identity crisis we don't know we have. Here's where it gets deeper. The more certain you are of something, a belief, a memory, a worldview, the more it becomes tied to your identity. You don't just think you're right. You are right. And if someone challenges your belief, it's not just an intellectual disagreement. It feels like an attack on you. So you defend, not the idea, but yourself. And now, learning becomes impossible. Because to learn, you have to be open. To change, you have to risk being wrong. To grow, you have to let go of who you were yesterday. But when your certainty becomes yourself, letting go feels like death. The illusion of I know. It's terrifying how fast this happens. You learn one fact. It aligns with what you already believe. It feels good, affirming, safe. So you grab onto it, wrap it in your ego, and suddenly it's not a fact anymore. It's your truth. Now anyone who disagrees isn't just misinformed, they're dangerous. They're wrong. They're the problem. You stop questioning. You stop learning. You stop seeing. You don't grow. You defend. And slowly, without realizing it, you build a fortress around a fragment of reality, and inside that fortress, you feel safe. But you're not safe. You're stuck. How certainty freezes the mind. There's a reason wise people seem slow to speak. They've seen what certainty can do, how it hardens the heart, how it freezes the mind, how it turns people into statues, unmovable, unchanging, unalive. Because real thinking isn't rigid, it's fluid, it shifts, it adapts, it breathes, but certainty doesn't breathe, it holds its breath and clenches its fists. And in doing so, it misses what matters most. Reality isn't always simple, people aren't always one-sided, and the truth rarely fits in a headline. The certainty flood, social media, and the death of dialogue. Look at your screen, swipe through any comment section, open any political thread, read any argument online. You'll see it. A war of convictions. Everyone shouting, no one listening. It's not discussion. It's declaration. And it's not communication, it's combat. Certainty has gone viral, and the more confidently someone speaks, the more followers they get. The more aggressively they assert, the more they're praised. Because in a sea of information, confidence cuts through. It sounds like leadership. It feels like truth, but it's often just performance. And in that performance, something ancient dies, the art of thinking, the practice of doubt, the humility of saying, I don't know, the hidden cost of being right. But let's be honest, it feels good to be right. There's dopamine in it, power, control. And the more uncertain the world feels, the more we chase that feeling. We anchor to our opinions. We dig into our positions, because the alternative, admitting uncertainty, feels vulnerable, like standing naked in a storm. But here's the question no one asks. What does being right cost you? How many relationships have been ruined? How many bridges burned? How much empathy lost in the name of being correct? You can win an argument. You can silence the room. You can walk away with your ego intact. But at what cost? Sometimes being right isn't worth it, because when you trade connection for certainty, you don't win. You just end up alone. When certainty becomes a shield false. Certainty doesn't just divide, it protects. It shields us from fear, from the unknown, from the uncomfortable truth that life is chaotic and we don't have all the answers. So we cling to ideologies, to dogmas, to the illusion of clarity. We mistake repetition for truth, volume for insight, and conviction for evidence. But deep down, we're just scared. Scared of being wrong, scared of appearing weak, scared of stepping into the dark without a map. But sometimes, the only way to find light is to walk through that dark. The courage of uncertainty. It takes strength to say, I'm not sure. It takes real courage to say, I might be wrong. It takes wisdom to say, tell me more. And that kind of strength doesn't trend. It doesn't go viral. It doesn't win arguments on TV, but it changes lives. Because the people who grow, the ones who evolve, the ones who truly understand, they don't build walls out of their beliefs. They build doors, and they walk through them. Reclaiming doubt as a virtue. What if we stopped seeing doubt as weakness? What if we treated questions with more reverence than answers? What if we approached conversations not to win but to see? We might find that the world isn't as divided as we think. We might discover that people we disagree with aren't evil. They're just standing in a different shadow. And we might finally understand that truth isn't something you declare. It's something you uncover, slowly, painfully, patiently, with others, not against them. The room of quiet voices. Imagine this, a room full of people, not shouting, not tweeting, not interrupting, just listening, asking, pausing before answering. In that room, truth has space to breathe. Ego steps aside. Understanding takes root. That's the room we rarely enter, but it's the room we desperately need. And it starts with a single decision: to be less certain and more curious. Scene fades to black. One candle, flickering again. The less you know, the more certain you become. But maybe that's not the end of the sentence. Maybe it's a beginning. Maybe the real question isn't, how sure are you? Maybe it's, what haven't you seen yet? One line CTA, end of section 2. The deepest strength begins when you stop needing to be right.